Hello. I didn't see you come in there. I'm the tech reviewer. For this video, I am reprising the only topic I've discussed so far, which is this bad boy, the Xbox Elite controller. However, I'm jumping on the Fortnite bandwagon and telling you about how I've used this controller right here to kick some serious butt at Fortnite. Fortnite. It's like slow Call of Duty with forts. Like PUBG and more than any other game, Fortnite is a game that rewards you for being good and punishes you for being bad. There's no sweeter feeling than getting that awesome headshot and winning that epic duel for that glorious battle royale. No sweeter feeling. It's incredibly addictive. At the same time, losing a duel by a split second or a tenth of a second, especially when you were right away so close to getting that huge victory, is really, really frustrating. Therefore, having an extra edge like this bad boy is even more dramatic than in, say, Call of Duty, which is cool, but when you die in Call of Duty, it's not really a big deal, and when you kill someone in Call of Duty, it's also not a big deal. I've racked up about 100 hours playing Fortnite with this bad boy, and I can tell you that more than Halo or Call of Duty or any other game I've played, even more than PUBG, as for reasons I'll get into later, this controller gives you a real strategic advantage. Now, let's discuss why. Now, before I go any further into this, I just want to tell you that I'm not very good at FPS games. I'm a lot better at strategy games like Gwent, so I need this controller and all the tips and tricks that I'm telling you just to be good. Now, you shouldn't take this as being, oh, this guy doesn't know Fortnite, so why should I listen to him? I'm just like you. I assume you're not amazing at Fortnite either. Not everyone can be amazing. In fact, only 50% of people can even be above average. But as Yorveth says in everyone's favorite card game, brains, not bravery, is how you win. Let's use our brains, shall we? So the first technique I want to talk about is really important, it's really fundamental, it's totally unchanged from my previous video where I was talking about Call of Duty. It's called fast shooting. Now, when you use the traditional triggers on the Xbox Elite controller, there's this large amount of action between when you're pressing it down. It actually takes a pretty long time. There's this huge amount of sensitivity, like the trigger knows if it's 10% down or 20% down or 50% down of the way. But this is actually not very useful for shooting a gun, which is a binary thing. It's either off or on, shooting or not shooting. So you have this really high action, and having your shoot button on this really messes with you. Enter the right tab. Just press this bad boy down. Oh, that action is so low. There's a direct connection between your brain and shooting. This is really key in Fortnite, where you have to be really, really accurate. Here's some shots of me fast shooting some noobs using this technique. Also, it goes without saying that you should disable the vibration on your controller since it will only mess with you. Also, fast shooting works really well with shotgun peeking, where you kind of peek out around a wall, let out a quick shotgun blast, and go back in. It's a lot harder to do with this right trigger. And the best part of this is it saves the right trigger to be freed up for building, which I'll get to a little bit later. Okay, so now we're going to get into the more interesting stuff. The second technique I call jump teching. Now, since we reassigned our shoot and aim buttons to these paddles in the back, it leaves the triggers for us to do whatever we want with them. So I like to have the left trigger, wait for it, set to jump. Now, by default, the jump button is right here. It's the A button. This is extremely awkward since when you're aiming with your thumb, you actually have to move your thumb from the pad to the A button to jump. So you have to move it and then move it back really quickly to get back to aiming. Not only is this time consuming, but it's really hard when you bring your thumb back to the controller, it's really hard to aim. No one can do it, and a lot of the times you see people on PC who are really good at that. That's because they're able to keep their hand on the mouse while they're jumping at all times. Now, when the jump button is this trigger, you can jump and aim at the same time. It's ridiculous. This allows you to be much more effective in shotgun duels, which I'll admit are still largely luck-based in the game of Fortnite, but now you can jump and aim at the same time. Plus, it lets you do this cool kind of 360-degree looky thing while you're jumping. So while you're running around, you can get a lot more vision of what's going on by using this jump technique. I see noobs all the time. You can see them when they're fighting. They jump, and then they don't change their heading at all while they're jumping. You can tell that these guys don't have an elite controller, and they're pretty easy to pick off. In a head-to-head duel, if you're jumping and aiming at the same time, it's a big advantage. All right, pro tip number 3. I like to call this technique fast building. Just like we set the jump button to the left trigger, I like to keep build on the right trigger. Normally build is B, which has the same problem, which is that you can't build and aim at the same time. In fact, if you're in the middle of a firefight trying to track your opponent, keep your aim on a thing, pressing the big build button can be a big problem. Most of the time, your only option is to kind of abandon the combat mode to move your thumb to build, do all the building, then take your weapon back out and get ready to shoot. This results in death, which is not advisable. So using fast building, you can rapidly switch to building, put something up like a wall, then switch back, peek out from behind the wall, waste your opponent. It's a time-honored technique that brings the chuckles big time. In fact, defense is so overpowered in Fortnite. By mastering this technique, you can really just get way better than anything else I've mentioned. When someone shoots at you, bam, wall, build, put a wall in front of it. Just that easy. You can do it really quickly with the Elite controller by doing the mappings that I mentioned. Finally, some other tips. Peeking and building only works if you actually use the cover that you make. So use fast building, make cover, then use the cover by getting behind it. Peek out, quick shot, back in the cover. In addition, one thing I hate about the Elite controller is it has massive dead zone. It feels like for a huge amount of space all around, the right joystick does nothing, which means having a high sensitivity just doesn't work. You have to set your sensitivity to low on the Xbox Elite controller and then just kind of move around in these big, broad movements. There's no way around it. It kind of sucks, but the extra advantage makes up for it. Honestly, I feel there's a much better dead zone on just my regular Spec Ops controller. So there's some other things that you could do with this. For example, I've kind of joked around with mixing, skipping, switching, shoot and aim, because if you shoot with your left hand, this means you're shooting and aiming with different hands, which gives you a little better aim on that. So I've experimented with that. That's also hard to reason with. Are there any other techniques that you have? There's special configuration that you've used on Fortnite. Do you prefer to use the top tabs or the lower tabs? I actually prefer the lower tabs myself. Do you use all 4 tabs? Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you don't have your own Xbox Elite controller, I found a great deal for you. So check out the link in the description, as this will furnish you with a low price on an Xbox Elite controller. And a bit of a disclaimer, I do make a bit of money if you choose to buy the controller through this link. So I've been the Tech Reviewer. I hope you go straight to owning at Fortnite with me, and here's some more clips of me owning noobs.